Welcome to Horror Echo. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from and the time. Now, relax and join me on a journey into the unknown. The science behind why we love scary stories. The evolution of fear. Fear, as an emotion, is one of the most ancient and deeply embedded responses in the human psyche. It's not just a fleeting feeling. Fear is a survival mechanism that has evolved over millions of years to protect us from harm. Our primitive ancestors needed to react swiftly to danger to avoid predators or other threats. Fear, therefore, became integral to survival, triggering a cascade of physiological and psychological responses. The heart would race, muscles would tense, and the mind would focus on one goal: survival. The fight-or-flight response, a concept first described by the American physiologist Walter Cannon, is a physiological reaction to an immediate threat that allows the body to either confront the danger, fight, or escape from it, flight. This reaction is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system, and it is activated by the release of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare the body for action. In the past, the threats were real: predators in the wild, natural disasters, or enemy tribes. Our ancestors who could respond swiftly to these dangers had a better chance of survival, passing on their fear-driven traits to future generations. As human societies evolved, these immediate physical threats became less common, but the fear response remained intact. Today, we might not face life-or-death situations every day, but our brains still process fear and danger the same way. This biological reaction to fear, designed for survival, is now triggered by less obvious threats, like horror movies, ghost stories, or even dark alleys. Our brains react as though we're still in danger, preparing our bodies to respond as they would if we were truly in peril. When we listen to a scary story, our body instinctively enters this heightened state of alertness, even though we know, on a logical level, that no actual harm is present. This duality of brain activity, realizing the threat isn't real while experiencing the same physiological reactions as if it were, forms the foundation for why we enjoy horror so much. We feel fear, but we're safe, creating a thrilling, paradoxical experience. The neuroscience of fear and pleasure. As unsettling as fear may seem, it's also remarkably pleasurable in a controlled context. This might seem counterintuitive. After all, no one wants to experience danger or discomfort for its own sake. So, why do we seek out horror? To understand this, we must delve into the neuroscience of fear and pleasure. When we experience fear, particularly in a controlled environment like watching a horror film or reading a spooky story, our brains still produce similar neurochemical responses as if we were facing an actual threat. The hypothalamus, which governs our stress responses, triggers the release of adrenaline and other stress hormones. These hormones are responsible for increasing our heart rate, heightening our senses, and preparing the body to react. Simultaneously, our brain releases endorphins, natural chemicals that help to alleviate pain and induce feelings of pleasure and euphoria. The release of these feel-good chemicals creates a paradox. Even as we experience fear, we also experience a sense of exhilaration, which can be addictive. The pleasure derived from horror, then, is a byproduct of this neurochemical response. In much the same way that we might enjoy a thrilling amusement park ride or a challenging video game, horror offers us an emotional roller coaster that is both frightening and enjoyable. It's a safe way to experience intense emotions without any actual risk. The excitement of the danger is counterbalanced by the knowledge that we are secure. This juxtaposition between fear and safety is what makes scary stories so enjoyable. Furthermore, our brains are wired to seek novelty and arousal. Evolutionarily, we are hardwired to pay attention to things that surprise us or evoke strong emotions. A good horror story taps into this by presenting unexpected twists, shocking moments, and suspenseful build-ups that activate our brain's reward system. As we navigate through the tension and release of these stories, our brains experience a mix of anxiety and relief, both of which are pleasurable in their own way. The more intense the fear, the greater the relief when the threat is over, and this dynamic keeps us hooked. The role of context in horror. The way we experience fear is heavily influenced by the context in which it is presented. Horror stories often use familiar settings or sounds, like the sound of rain or creaking floorboards, to create a sense of comfort and vulnerability simultaneously. The sound of rain, for instance, is generally calming for most people, evoking a sense of coziness and peace. However, in a horror context, the rain can take on a different meaning, transforming into a backdrop that amplifies the eerie atmosphere. This shift in perception plays a key role in making horror so effective. The brain's ability to associate familiar, comforting sounds with danger is crucial in creating fear. When we hear a familiar sound, like rain or the hum of a nighttime breeze, we may feel safe, but in the context of a horror story, those same sounds can become unsettling. This association between the familiar and the threatening is what makes horror stories so captivating. They exploit the vulnerability we feel when our comforting surroundings are turned against us. The familiarity lulls us into a sense of security, while the underlying fear builds as the narrative unfolds. Similarly, the use of darkness, isolation, and disorientation in horror stories takes advantage of our basic fear responses. Darkness, historically, was the domain of unseen dangers, predators, unknown threats, or even our own imaginations. Our brains are wired to fear the unknown, and when the lights go out or the narrative shifts into the shadows, our primal fear instincts are activated. In horror stories, the dark becomes more than just a lack of light. It becomes a symbol of danger, uncertainty, and impending doom. Horror as catharsis. One of the most fascinating aspects of horror is the sense of catharsis it provides. In psychological terms, catharsis refers to the process of releasing, and thereby providing relief from, strong or repressed emotions. For many people, experiencing fear in a safe, controlled environment, whether through a story, a movie, or even a haunted house attraction, allows them to confront their anxieties and emotional turmoil in a way that is ultimately therapeutic. Fear, when experienced in a controlled way, can serve as a form of emotional release. As we engage with a scary story, we're able to experience fear without real consequences, allowing us to release pent-up emotions in a way that is both safe and fulfilling. In fact, the cathartic release of fear is one of the reasons people find horror so comforting, even though it might seem counterintuitive. It allows us to confront and process our deepest anxieties, only to walk away from the experience feeling cleansed and relieved. Additionally, horror stories often deal with themes of death, the unknown, and the afterlife, subjects that are inherently uncomfortable for many people. Yet, by confronting these topics in a fictional setting, we can explore them at a safe distance. This allows us to process our fears of mortality and the unknown, which can ultimately lead to a sense of acceptance and peace. Why horror stories endure? So why do horror stories continue to captivate us, even in a world where immediate physical threats are rare? The answer lies in our evolutionary biology, our neurological response to fear, and the cathartic release it provides. We are hardwired to respond to fear, but we also derive pleasure from overcoming it. Horror stories offer us a unique opportunity to confront and process our deepest fears while experiencing a thrill that our brains find rewarding. In addition, horror taps into our fundamental need to understand and confront the unknown. The darkness, the monsters, the eerie sounds, these are all metaphors for the fears we carry with us every day. The fear of death, the fear of losing control, the fear of the unknown. By engaging with these fears in a controlled, fictional context, we're able to come to terms with them without having to face real danger. Ultimately, the enduring appeal of horror lies in its ability to evoke strong emotional responses while providing a safe space to experience and release those emotions. The mix of fear, thrill, and catharsis is what keeps us returning to scary stories time and time again. And as long as we continue to be drawn to the darkness, horror stories will remain a beloved and integral part of our cultural landscape. The psychology of horror, exploring the concept of safe fear. Horror stories have long captivated human imagination, tapping into our deepest fears and anxieties. But why do we willingly seek out fear in such a controlled environment? Why do we enjoy being frightened when we know that we are in no real danger? This paradoxical enjoyment of fear, especially when experienced through stories, movies, or haunted attractions, can be explained through the concept of safe fear. Safe fear refers to the idea that while we can experience the intense emotion of fear, we do so in an environment that ensures we are not in actual peril. The ability to experience fear in a controlled, safe setting offers us a unique psychological opportunity to confront and process our fears in a way that does not harm us. This concept is at the heart of why horror works so well as a form of entertainment and emotional release. Understanding fear as an emotion. Fear is one of the most primal and powerful emotions that humans experience. It is designed to protect us, to alert us to danger, and to prepare our bodies to respond to threats. Fear is part of the human survival mechanism, triggering the fight-or-flight response that activates in the face of danger. This response, initiated by the brain's amygdala, releases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, heightening our senses and preparing us for action. While the physiological aspects of fear, such as the racing heart, the quickened breath, and the surge of adrenaline, are all part of the body's automatic reaction to threats, fear also has a psychological component. Fear often arises in response to the unknown, the unpredictable, or the ambiguous. It can be a response to both tangible threats, such as dangerous animals or physical harm, and more abstract threats, like the fear of failure, loss, or death. This combination of psychological and physiological responses makes fear such a powerful and immersive emotion. In everyday life, fear is typically a reaction to genuine threats, but when we watch a horror movie or read a chilling story, the threats we encounter are fictional. The monster under the bed, the haunted house, or the dark forest may elicit the same intense emotional response as a real danger, but we know, deep down, that they are not real. Yet, despite this awareness, we still experience fear, sometimes even more intensely because we allow ourselves to be immersed in the story. The concept of safe fear. The allure of horror lies in the concept of safe fear. This idea explains why people are willing to seek out frightening experiences despite the absence of actual danger. In the context of horror stories, we are able to confront the unknown, explore the darkest corners of our psyche, and experience the thrill of fear, all from the safety of our homes, theaters, or books. The safety aspect of horror is crucial because it allows us to engage with fear in a controlled environment. We can choose when to enter the terrifying world of a story and when to leave it. The stakes are low. We can experience fear without any real-world consequences. In fact, knowing that we are safe is what makes the experience so enjoyable. It provides a thrilling, yet secure, emotional release. When we are frightened by a horror story, our bodies react as though we are in actual danger. Our heart rate increases, our palms may sweat, and we may even feel a rush of adrenaline. However, once the story ends or we turn off the movie, the danger dissipates, and we return to a sense of safety. This psychological shift from fear to relief is part of the reason why horror can be so exhilarating. It allows us to experience a complex range of emotions without any real threat, giving us a sense of control over our own fear. Emotional catharsis in horror. One of the most powerful aspects of horror is its ability to provide emotional catharsis. Catharsis, a concept rooted in ancient Greek drama, refers to the process of releasing strong or repressed emotions, leading to a sense of relief or purification. In the context of horror, emotional catharsis occurs when we confront and process our fears through a fictional narrative. Horror stories allow us to safely explore the dark and uncomfortable parts of our psyche, fears of death, loss, isolation, or the unknown. By confronting these fears in a fictional setting, we can experience a release of pent-up emotions. For many people, horror serves as a safe outlet for anxiety and fear. It allows them to face and work through emotions that might be too overwhelming or difficult to confront in their everyday lives. For example, a person who is deeply afraid of death may find catharsis in a horror movie that deals with themes of mortality and the afterlife. Similarly, someone struggling with feelings of isolation or loneliness might find emotional release through stories that center on characters facing these same struggles. By engaging with these emotions in a controlled environment, viewers and readers can process their fears, gaining a sense of control and mastery over them. Moreover, horror allows us to experience a range of intense emotions: fear, suspense, dread, and relief, all within a short period of time. This emotional roller coaster creates a kind of psychological cleansing. The buildup of fear followed by the release of tension can be deeply satisfying, leaving the individual with a sense of emotional resolution. Fear and psychological growth. In addition to providing catharsis, confronting fear in a safe environment can lead to psychological growth. When we engage with horror, we are not only processing emotions, we are also learning to cope with fear itself. By facing our fears through fiction, we develop a greater tolerance for discomfort and anxiety. Horror stories provide us with an opportunity to rehearse how we might respond to fear-inducing situations, all without any real consequences. This is particularly important because fear, in its many forms, is a natural and unavoidable part of life. Everyone experiences fear at some point, whether it is fear of the unknown, fear of failure, or fear of loss. Learning to cope with these feelings in a controlled environment can help us develop resilience and emotional strength. Horror stories offer a way to practice confronting our fears without the risks associated with real-life situations. Furthermore, horror can help individuals build empathy. By exploring the emotional journeys of characters who face terrifying circumstances, we can gain insight into our own emotional responses and understand how others might feel in similar situations. This empathetic connection can help us navigate our own fears and anxieties with greater compassion and understanding. The social aspect of horror. While horror is often thought of as a solitary experience, there is also a strong social element to it. Watching a horror movie with friends or discussing a scary story with others can amplify the emotional impact of fear. In group settings, people tend to share their reactions, reinforcing the feelings of fear and excitement. This social interaction creates a sense of solidarity as we navigate the terrifying world of horror together. Moreover, the shared experience of fear can create a sense of connection between individuals. In a way, horror stories bring us closer to others by allowing us to experience intense emotions in a communal setting. The shared vulnerability of being scared, followed by the shared relief when the story ends, can foster bonds between people, whether they are friends, family, or even strangers. In some cultures, horror stories and rituals have historically played an important role in communal life. Festivals, storytelling gatherings, and theatrical performances often include elements of horror to evoke collective emotions. These shared experiences of fear can create a sense of community and cultural cohesion as people come together to confront the unknown. The dark side of horror, is it always healthy? While horror can provide emotional release, catharsis, and psychological growth, it's important to acknowledge that not everyone reacts to fear in the same way. For some individuals, particularly those who have experienced trauma or have anxiety disorders, engaging with horror may be overwhelming or harmful. The intensity of fear evoked by certain stories or media can trigger distressing memories or emotions, making the experience more frightening than enjoyable. Additionally, excessive consumption of horror content may desensitize individuals to fear over time. This desensitization can lead to a diminished emotional response to fear, which may make it harder to cope with real-life anxiety and stress. For this reason, it is important to be mindful of how much and how often we engage with horror. Conclusion: the power of safe fear. Ultimately, the concept of safe fear explains why we are drawn to horror and why we continue to seek out terrifying stories, even though they provoke strong emotional responses. By allowing us to experience fear in a controlled environment, horror gives us an opportunity to confront our deepest anxieties, process emotions, and gain psychological insight. The catharsis, growth, and connection that horror provides make it a powerful tool for emotional exploration and self-discovery. In a world where fear is often avoided or suppressed, horror offers a unique space to embrace and confront it. Through horror, we can face the unknown, experience intense emotions, and emerge from the experience with a sense of relief, understanding, and even empowerment. Whether through books, films, or stories shared around a campfire, horror will continue to be a cherished and vital part of the human experience, offering us both a safe outlet for fear and an opportunity to grow through it. The brain's response to horror: understanding fear's impact. When we experience fear, whether from a real threat or a fictional one, our brain reacts in a profound and physiological way. The process involves various regions of the brain, with one of the most crucial being the amygdala, the brain center for processing emotions, particularly fear. The activation of the amygdala plays a significant role in triggering the fight-or-flight response that we experience during moments of terror. The amygdala, the fear center of the brain. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped cluster of nuclei located deep within the temporal lobes of the brain. It has a pivotal role in the processing of emotions, particularly those related to fear, anxiety, and aggression. When we encounter a frightening stimulus, whether it's a shadow in a dark room or the haunting imagery of a horror story, the amygdala springs into action. It acts as a sort of emotional alarm system, sending signals throughout the brain and body to prepare us for action. In the case of horror, this means that the brain perceives danger, real or imagined, and activates several neural pathways that help us deal with the threat. The amygdala communicates with the hypothalamus, the part of the brain responsible for regulating the body's stress response. This leads to the release of stress hormones, like adrenaline and cortisol, which cause a cascade of physiological reactions in the body. Adrenaline and cortisol, the hormones of fear. Adrenaline, also known as epinephrine, is one of the primary hormones released when the body experiences fear. Produced by the adrenal glands, adrenaline prepares the body for rapid action. It triggers a number of physiological changes. The heart rate accelerates, blood vessels constrict to redirect blood to essential organs and muscles, and the airways open up to increase oxygen intake. These changes are designed to optimize the body's ability to either fight or flee from danger. Cortisol, another hormone released during fear, is associated with the body's stress response. While adrenaline prepares the body for immediate physical action, cortisol helps to maintain that state of readiness over a longer period. It heightens the brain's alertness, improves memory retention, and ensures that the body stays in a heightened state of awareness until the threat is gone. This combination of adrenaline and cortisol creates an overwhelming physical and emotional experience that is at the core of our fear responses. The physiological changes, heart rate, sweating, and tremors. The combination of adrenaline and cortisol results in several noticeable physical changes. One of the most immediate and obvious responses is an increased heart rate. The heart pumps faster to deliver more oxygen-rich blood to the muscles and vital organs, preparing the body for quick action. This can lead to a sensation of butterflies in the stomach or an intense pounding feeling in the chest. Another common physiological response is sweating. The body sweats to regulate temperature during times of stress, as increased physical exertion can lead to overheating. Sweating is also a signal that the body is on high alert, preparing for either fight or flight. In addition to sweating, many people also experience a sensation of coldness or goosebumps, a phenomenon known as piloerection. This response, which causes the tiny muscles around hair follicles to contract, is a remnant of our evolutionary past, when raising hair made our ancestors appear larger in the face of danger. Tremors or shaking are also common when fear is experienced. This is often due to the body's overactivation of the muscles in preparation for action. The nervous system, heightened by the release of adrenaline, causes the muscles to contract involuntarily. This shaking can range from subtle quivering to full-body tremors, depending on the intensity of the fear response. The thrill of horror, how physical and emotional responses combine. The combined effect of these physiological and emotional responses creates the characteristic thrill associated with horror. It's this intense cocktail of fear, excitement, and adrenaline that many people find appealing when consuming horror media. The heart races, the skin tingles, and there's a sense of heightened awareness as the brain processes fear-inducing stimuli. However, unlike real-world fear, horror allows us to experience these intense emotions within the safety of our environment, which creates a unique paradox. On a psychological level, this physiological response provides an emotional rush or high because it activates the brain's reward systems. The release of endorphins, the brain's natural painkillers, can create a sense of pleasure or euphoria in response to the intense fear. The rush of adrenaline is often followed by a sense of relief once the story ends or the frightening experience concludes, which can lead to a feeling of satisfaction. It's this combination of fear and safety that explains why horror, despite its terror-inducing nature, can be so enjoyable. In essence, the brain's response to horror is a blend of primitive survival instincts and modern psychological pleasure. The amygdala triggers the fear response, sending the body into a heightened state of alertness. Adrenaline and cortisol prepare the body for fight or flight, causing physiological changes like rapid heartbeat and sweating. These physical reactions, combined with the emotional thrill of fear, create the intense sensation of horror that people find both terrifying and enjoyable. The experience of safe fear is what makes horror a powerful and lasting form of entertainment. The power of storytelling in horror, how narrative techniques manipulate emotion and build tension. Horror, as a genre, has a unique ability to evoke deep, primal emotions. At its core, it is not just about frightening imagery or terrifying plots. It's the art of storytelling that shapes how fear is experienced. Effective horror stories use a variety of literary techniques to manipulate emotions, build tension, and draw the audience into a terrifying world. These techniques, foreshadowing, symbolism, vivid imagery, and the interplay between sound, visuals, and narrative, work together to create an immersive and emotionally charged experience. Foreshadowing, building anticipation and anxiety. One of the most powerful literary tools in horror storytelling is foreshadowing. Foreshadowing is the subtle art of hinting at events to come, preparing the audience for the inevitable and creating a sense of impending doom. Through carefully placed clues, a skilled horror writer can make the audience feel unease long before the true horror is revealed. Foreshadowing in horror works by priming the reader or viewer to expect something bad to happen. A faint noise in the distance, a shadow just out of sight, or a character expressing an odd feeling of dread all signal that danger is on the horizon. This anticipatory tension can be more frightening than the actual horror, as the fear of the unknown lingers. The brain becomes hyper-aware, scanning for threats, and the anticipation of terror builds, often making the eventual revelation feel even more intense. For example, a writer may describe a seemingly ordinary setting, an abandoned house, a dark alley, or a quiet forest, while subtly planting hints of something amiss. These hints create a sense of unease, and as the story progresses, the audience's mind is constantly on edge, awaiting the moment when the foreshadowed horror will finally unfold. Symbolism, adding depth to fear. Symbolism is another key element in effective horror storytelling. Through the use of symbols, writers can imbue seemingly simple objects, settings, or events with deeper meaning, amplifying the emotional impact of the narrative. These symbols often tap into universal fears, tapping into deep-rooted cultural and psychological associations. For instance, the image of a doll or child's toy can symbolize innocence, yet when placed in a horror setting, it can evoke feelings of unease and dread. Dolls, often seen as lifelike and innocent, can quickly take on sinister connotations in the right context. This tension between innocence and malevolence creates a sense of discomfort, turning something familiar into a source of fear. Similarly, nature often plays a symbolic role in horror. The night, the moon, fog, or the forest can be used to symbolize the unknown, darkness, and the hidden dangers lurking beneath the surface. These symbols tap into the human fear of what lies beyond our understanding, creating an atmosphere of mystery and threat. By using these symbols, horror stories create a sense of foreboding that goes beyond the literal threat. Vivid imagery, bringing the fear to life. Imagery in horror is often described as vivid because it aims to engage the reader's senses in such a way that the terror feels tangible. A well-crafted horror story doesn't just tell the reader about fear, it makes them feel it. The use of sensory details, describing the sound of creaking floorboards, the smell of damp earth, or the feeling of cold breath on the back of the neck, draws the audience deeper into the world of the story. Vivid imagery can transform a simple scene into a nightmarish experience. For example, a description of an old, decaying house might evoke the sensation of decay and abandonment, making the reader feel as if they are there, experiencing the haunting atmosphere firsthand. The descriptions are so detailed that they activate the imagination, allowing the reader or viewer to picture the terrifying environment in their mind, amplifying the emotional impact. In visual media like film, this same principle applies. Cinematographers use lighting, color, and camera angles to create images that evoke fear. A shadow cast by an unseen figure, a character's reflection in a dirty mirror, or the use of low, ominous angles can all serve to intensify the sense of dread. The interplay between lighting and shadow plays a significant role in horror, as it creates an atmosphere of uncertainty, where the mind is left to fill in the terrifying gaps. The interplay of sound, image, and narrative. One of the most effective ways horror stories create an emotional impact is through the combination of sound, visuals, and narrative. In both written and visual storytelling, these elements work together to reinforce the feelings of fear and tension, engaging multiple senses to enhance the horror experience. In film, the sound design is crucial to creating an immersive atmosphere. A slow, haunting melody can set the tone of dread, while sudden, sharp sounds, such as a door slamming shut or a scream, can jolt the viewer into a heightened state of alertness. The use of silence in horror can be equally effective. Moments of quiet anticipation, where the audience knows something is about to happen but is left in suspense, can be just as nerve-wracking as the loud, jarring moments of terror. The visuals also play a critical role in this sensory interaction. A well-timed jump scare, combined with a loud, unexpected sound, can cause an emotional reaction that is difficult to replicate in any other genre. However, effective horror doesn't rely solely on these shocking moments. It also uses slow-building tension, where the sound and visuals gradually increase in intensity, culminating in a peak of fear. This gradual escalation of dread, coupled with the emotional investment in the characters and their situation, makes the eventual horror feel earned and all the more intense. In written horror, the rhythm of the language, the pacing of the narrative, and the sensory descriptions of the environment work together to create a similar effect. A slow build-up, where the reader's anticipation grows, paired with vivid imagery and sensory details, builds a foundation of terror. As the narrative unfolds, the reader is drawn deeper into the world of the story, and the emotional impact becomes more pronounced. The emotional impact of horror. The emotional impact of horror lies in its ability to tap into universal human fears: fear of death, the unknown, isolation, loss of control, and the collapse of reality. By manipulating these fears through literary techniques, horror stories create a visceral reaction in the audience. The sense of danger, the anticipation of terror, and the psychological depth that these stories provide can leave an emotional mark long after the story has ended. Effective horror also taps into the human need to confront our own fears. Horror provides an opportunity for catharsis, as readers or viewers face the fear of the unknown in a safe and controlled environment. The fear, once confronted, can lead to a sense of release or relief, which is a key component of why people return to horror stories repeatedly. It is the balance between fear and safety, the emotional high of facing terror and surviving it, that creates the powerful impact of horror storytelling. Conclusion: the mastery of horror storytelling. The strength of horror lies not just in its ability to frighten, but in its mastery of narrative techniques that manipulate emotion and create a tense, immersive experience. Foreshadowing builds anticipation, symbolism adds layers of meaning, and vivid imagery draws the reader or viewer into a terrifying world. The interplay between sound, visuals, and narrative creates a rich, multi-sensory experience that enhances the emotional impact. At its best, horror doesn't just rely on monsters or jump scares. It uses storytelling techniques to engage with the audience's deepest fears, creating a world where every element, the characters, the setting, the sounds, and the visuals, works together to provoke a powerful emotional response. The art of horror storytelling lies in its ability to make fear not just a fleeting emotion, but a visceral, unforgettable experience. Beyond fear, the deeper themes of horror stories. Horror, often seen as a genre of terror and thrill, offers much more than just scares and shocks. At its core, it is a reflection of the human condition, exploring profound themes such as morality, mortality, and the fragility of life. Horror stories can provide a unique lens through which to examine not only our fears, but also our deepest values, societal anxieties, and existential questions. Through these narratives, we are given the opportunity to explore what it means to be human in a world that is often unpredictable, terrifying, and fragile. Exploring morality in horror. One of the most intriguing aspects of horror stories is their ability to confront moral dilemmas and questions about human nature. Many horror tales explore the conflict between good and evil, often putting characters in situations where their actions are put to the test. The genre provides a platform for exploring complex ethical issues, such as the consequences of choices, the nature of evil, and the limits of human decency. In horror, the line between right and wrong is frequently blurred. Characters may face extreme situations that force them to make difficult decisions, and often, these choices reflect the darker aspects of human nature. For example, in many horror stories, the protagonist may be forced to choose between survival and morality, often leading to an internal struggle that reveals their true character. The tension between personal survival and ethical integrity is a recurring theme in the genre, highlighting how fear and stress can push people to their breaking points, sometimes revealing a capacity for cruelty or selfishness. Moreover, horror stories often delve into the consequences of immoral actions. Characters who engage in unethical behavior, such as betrayal or greed, may find themselves subjected to terrifying consequences, serving as a cautionary tale. These narratives examine how human vices can lead to destruction, whether through supernatural retribution or the unraveling of societal norms. By confronting these moral themes, horror offers a way to reflect on our own values and behaviors, pushing us to consider the consequences of our actions in a broader societal and existential context. Mortality and the fragility of life. Another central theme in horror is the exploration of mortality. Death, in its various forms, whether it be through natural causes, violence, or the supernatural, frequently plays a central role in horror narratives. By confronting the inevitability of death, horror stories allow us to engage with our own existential fears and anxieties about the transient nature of life. Through horror, we are forced to confront the reality that life is fragile and uncertain. In many stories, death is portrayed not just as a physical end, but as something far more unsettling, an unknown, a mystery that cannot be understood or controlled. This representation of death challenges our understanding of existence, forcing us to face the fear of the unknown and the eventual cessation of our own lives. Horror also explores the emotional impact of mortality, whether it's the grief of losing a loved one, the fear of dying alone, or the existential terror of facing an inevitable end. By confronting these themes, horror allows us to explore the human condition from a place of vulnerability and uncertainty. Through the lens of horror, we can reflect on the meaning of life, the inevitability of death, and the ways in which we find meaning in a seemingly indifferent world. Horror is social commentary. Beyond the personal fears of mortality and morality, horror stories also serve as a platform for social commentary. The genre has long been used to explore societal fears and anxieties, often reflecting the cultural and political climate of the time. Horror offers a means to examine the darkest aspects of society, from issues of inequality and injustice to fears about technological advancement and the collapse of societal norms. In times of social upheaval, horror stories often mirror collective fears, whether it's fear of the other, fear of the unknown, or fear of losing control over societal structures. For example, many horror films from the 1950s reflect the anxieties of the Cold War era, with themes of invasion, contamination, and loss of identity. Similarly, contemporary horror often addresses issues like climate change, political corruption, and social unrest, using the genre to highlight societal issues in a visceral, impactful way. By portraying societal fears through the lens of horror, these stories allow us to confront the darker side of human civilization. They provide a space where we can examine our collective anxieties and grapple with the implications of social issues in a way that is both engaging and thought-provoking. Horror doesn't just show us what we fear. It challenges us to consider why we fear it and what those fears say about the world we live in. The science behind horror, understanding its power. Understanding the science behind horror, how fear works in the brain and body, helps us appreciate the genre's power to shape our perceptions and emotions. The way horror stories manipulate our senses and emotions is deeply rooted in psychological and physiological responses to fear. When we watch a horror film or read a frightening story, our brains release chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol, triggering a heightened state of awareness and fear. These chemicals not only increase our physical arousal but also impact our emotions, creating a deep connection between the viewer or reader and the story. The brain's response to horror is part of a primal survival mechanism designed to alert us to danger and prepare us for action. However, in a controlled environment, such as when we watch a horror film or read a scary story, we are able to experience these heightened emotions without the accompanying physical threat. This ability to manipulate our emotions, to induce fear in a safe environment, is what makes horror such a powerful genre. It taps into our deep-seated fears and emotions, engaging both the brain and body in a way that few other genres can. Moreover, the emotional responses evoked by horror, fear, anxiety, excitement, and relief, are not only psychological but also social. When we experience fear in a group setting, whether at the movies or through shared storytelling, it strengthens our connection to others. The collective experience of fear can create a sense of community, as we bond over shared emotions and reactions. This social aspect of horror adds another layer of depth to the genre, making it a powerful tool for both personal and societal reflection. Conclusion: horror as a mirror of humanity. Ultimately, horror stories are much more than just vehicles for fear. They offer a mirror to humanity, reflecting our deepest concerns, values, and beliefs. Through the exploration of morality, mortality, and societal anxieties, horror allows us to confront the most unsettling aspects of the human experience. It challenges us to examine the world around us, to consider our own fears, and to question the nature of existence itself. In doing so, horror becomes more than just a genre of entertainment. It is a platform for reflection, a space for dialogue, and a tool for understanding both our personal and collective fears. The science behind horror's ability to manipulate emotions and perceptions only deepens our appreciation for its power as a genre. By engaging with horror, we are not only confronting fear, we are engaging with the complex, multifaceted nature of the human condition. Horror is a catalyst for personal reflection and growth. Horror stories, despite their terrifying nature, offer more than just a fleeting moment of fear. They provide an opportunity for personal reflection and growth. As individuals face the emotional and psychological turmoil that horror induces, they are often forced to confront not just external threats but their own internal struggles, doubts, and fears. The fear experienced in horror is not just about the monster lurking in the dark or the unknown entity that haunts the story. It's about the human condition and how we cope with fear, mortality, and uncertainty. Many horror stories feature protagonists who must grapple with their own fears, whether they are facing literal death or confronting deep psychological trauma. By seeing characters overcome their fears, viewers and readers are often encouraged to do the same in their own lives. These stories can act as a metaphor for personal growth, as the characters navigate through their darkest fears to emerge stronger and more self-aware. For example, many horror narratives explore the theme of facing one's own mortality, which can be an unsettling thought for many people. These stories encourage us to reflect on our own lives, how we live them, how we face our own death, and how we deal with the fleeting nature of existence. In confronting these themes in a fictional setting, horror offers us a space where we can explore these difficult topics without the real-world consequences, giving us the tools to better navigate our own fears. Horror and empathy, understanding the human experience. In addition to personal reflection, horror stories can also enhance empathy. By exposing audiences to extreme and often uncomfortable emotions, horror encourages a deeper understanding of the human experience. Characters in horror are often forced to make difficult choices, face their deepest fears, and confront their vulnerabilities. This gives the audience a window into the complexities of human behavior and the emotional challenges that people face in times of crisis. Moreover, Horror frequently explores the relationships between individuals, often focusing on themes of isolation, survival, and sacrifice. The connections formed between characters in moments of terror reveal the depths of human resilience and compassion. In horror stories, even in the face of death or supernatural forces, characters can demonstrate empathy, kindness, and solidarity, traits that resonate with the audience and foster a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. As horror stories push characters to their limits, they also push audiences to question their own responses to fear and their capacity for empathy. In this way, horror can help us better understand ourselves and others by illuminating the emotional truths that lie beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Whether through the fear of the unknown, the anxiety of isolation, or the overwhelming force of death, horror gives us a way to confront the vulnerabilities that connect us all. Horror is a mirror of societal fears. Beyond the personal, horror stories serve as a reflection of broader societal fears. As societal issues evolve, so too does the nature of the horror genre, adapting to reflect the anxieties and concerns of the time. In times of social upheaval, political unrest, or technological advancement, horror stories often shift focus to explore the collective fears of the public. For example, during periods of war or political conflict, horror stories may focus on themes of invasion, corruption, or the breakdown of social order. In times of rapid technological growth, horror may explore the dangers of artificial intelligence, surveillance, or the loss of individuality. The genre has always been adept at capturing the zeitgeist of a particular era, making it not only a mirror of human nature, but also a reflection of the broader cultural and societal context. In this way, horror stories function as a social commentary, highlighting the anxieties and fears that society faces. They act as a cautionary tale, warning us of potential consequences and asking us to consider the darker side of progress and innovation. By using fear as a tool to comment on societal issues, horror allows us to confront uncomfortable truths about the world around us and the direction in which we are heading. Horror and the unknown, embracing uncertainty. At its heart, horror often deals with the unknown. Whether it's the unknown dangers lurking in the dark or the mysteries of the supernatural, horror constantly confronts the human fear of uncertainty. This fear is universal, and it is something that all humans grapple with at various points in their lives. The unknown represents everything that we cannot control or predict, and it taps into our primal instinct for safety and survival. Horror stories give us a chance to engage with the unknown in a controlled environment. We can explore the limits of our understanding and confront the things that frighten us, all while knowing that we are safe. In a sense, horror allows us to explore the edges of human knowledge and experience, to grapple with what lies beyond our understanding, and to embrace the uncertainty that is a fundamental part of the human condition. By engaging with the unknown through horror, we are forced to expand our perceptions of reality. The genre challenges our understanding of what is possible, forcing us to question the boundaries between the real and the unreal. It provides a space where imagination can run wild, allowing us to explore the deepest corners of the human psyche and the world beyond what we know. In doing so, horror helps us to embrace the mysteries of existence and encourages us to accept that not everything can or should be explained. Conclusion: the lasting impact of horror. Horror, at its best, is a genre that goes beyond fear. It provides us with a space to confront our deepest anxieties, explore the complexities of human nature, and reflect on the fragile nature of life. Through its exploration of morality, mortality, and societal fears, horror acts as both a mirror and a window into the human experience, offering profound insights into our existence and our place in the world. Whether through personal reflection, empathy, or social commentary, horror offers a powerful platform for understanding the darker aspects of life. The genre allows us to explore complex emotions and societal issues in a way that is engaging, thought-provoking, and cathartic. By embracing the unknown and confronting fear, horror helps us navigate the uncertainties of life and provides a deeper understanding of the human condition. As we continue to engage with horror stories, we are reminded of the power of storytelling and its ability to shape our perceptions, challenge our beliefs, and evoke deep emotional responses. Horror is not just about the scares, it's about the truths we uncover in the process of facing our fears. Conclusion: the enduring power of horror. Horror, as a genre, transcends its reputation for mere thrills and chills. It is an intricate exploration of human fears, societal anxieties, and existential questions, offering a deeper understanding of the human condition. Through the lens of horror, we confront the darkness within and around us, not just through monsters and supernatural threats, but through themes that explore morality, mortality, and the fragility of life. It is a space where we confront our most profound emotions, fear, grief, and loss, while simultaneously finding catharsis and relief. At its heart, horror offers a unique perspective on life. It forces us to grapple with uncomfortable truths, such as the inevitability of death, the complexity of human nature, and the often unpredictable world in which we live. By presenting these themes within the framework of fear, horror provides a way to process these existential concerns in a safe, controlled environment, allowing us to reflect on them without the real-world consequences. The power of horror also lies in its ability to serve as a mirror to society. By reflecting collective fears, social issues, and cultural anxieties, horror stories offer a platform for social commentary, encouraging audiences to engage with the darker aspects of the world around them. Whether addressing issues of inequality, political instability, or technological advancements, horror acts as a vehicle for exploring societal challenges and the unknown, often provoking us to question the direction in which we are heading. Furthermore, the science behind the emotional and physiological reactions to fear, such as the release of adrenaline and cortisol, allows us to better understand the genre's impact on our perceptions and emotions. The combination of storytelling techniques, foreshadowing, symbolism, vivid imagery, and the interaction of sound and visuals creates an immersive experience that draws us into the world of the story. This emotional intensity, fueled by both the fear and the relief it evokes, is what makes horror so compelling and why it continues to resonate with audiences across generations. Ultimately, horror is more than just a genre designed to frighten. It is a powerful tool for emotional exploration, personal reflection, and societal reflection. Through horror, we are given the opportunity to explore the deepest corners of our minds, confront our darkest fears, and gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we inhabit. It challenges us to question, reflect, and grow, making it a lasting and invaluable part of our cultural landscape. In embracing the fear, we are often rewarded with insight, resilience, and a greater appreciation for the fragile beauty of life. Horror, with its ability to delve into the darkest corners of human experience, also offers a unique space for personal growth. While it taps into our innate fears, it simultaneously provides a controlled environment for us to confront those fears, enabling us to process and reflect on them without the real-world consequences. This therapeutic aspect is one of the reasons horror stories hold such enduring appeal. They allow us to explore not only the external threats that scare us, but also the internal struggles and emotional complexities that we navigate every day. The catharsis that comes with experiencing fear in a safe setting, whether through literature, film, or other forms of media, provides a sense of relief once the tension has passed. This emotional release allows us to face our own fears head-on and, in doing so, gain a deeper sense of emotional resilience. We are reminded that fear, in its many forms, is not something to be avoided, but something we can learn to confront, understand, and ultimately transcend. Horror also has a profound social function. It acts as a mirror to society, reflecting the collective fears, anxieties, and uncertainties that we face as a culture. Whether the fear stems from political instability, technological advancements, or shifting social norms, horror holds up a lens to the fears that we, as individuals and as a society, must confront. It provides a platform for dialogue about issues that are often difficult to discuss openly, offering a way to address these concerns through the safe distance of fiction. Moreover, horror's ability to provoke thought and conversation continues to make it relevant in the modern world. As our societal anxieties evolve, so too do the themes explored in horror stories. From ecological disaster to the collapse of social structures, horror continually evolves, adapting to reflect the changing fears of the world. It helps us make sense of the world around us, offering not just an escape from fear, but a way to engage with it meaningfully. In conclusion, the significance of horror extends far beyond its ability to frighten. It offers a profound exploration of what it means to be human, the emotional, moral, existential, and societal dimensions of our existence. It serves as a vehicle for personal reflection, social critique, and emotional release. Through the lens of horror, we confront our fears, reflect on our mortality, and gain insight into the human experience. It is a genre that thrives on its ability to challenge our perceptions, provoke deep thought, and, in the end, provide us with a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world we live in. Horror, in all its forms, continues to shape and influence not only our cultural landscape but also the way we interact with our deepest fears and anxieties. By embracing this genre, we gain not just a thrill, but a powerful tool for understanding the complexities of life. In confronting the darkness, we find light, and in facing the unknown, we gain clarity. Horror, therefore, is not just a genre of fright, it is a genre of revelation. Horror, therefore, is not just a genre of fright, it is a genre of revelation. Thank you for listening to today's story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Horror Echo. Let us know if you've ever had a similar experience. We'd love to hear your story. Sweet dreams, if you can sleep.